It's a book called 40 Facets to Starting and Growing a Business. And you're right, you didn't know I was writing a book. In fact, my own family didn't even know I was writing a book. I kept it kind of secret. And it was a spur of the moment thing, which I decided to do. And it actually came together very quickly once I started. But it's really it's an overview of running a business when you first start out, because I think what happens is when someone goes from employment into running a business, there's so much to know, and I haven't gone into great depth in any one thing, but I've given an overview of a lot of different topics of starting a business that gives you a good bird's eye view of what you're getting yourself into. When I eventually left that, a friend of mine said, "Well, what do you actually want to do? If you won the lottery and you had 40 million pounds in your bank account, you didn't actually have to work, what would you do to keep yourself busy?" And I thought about it, and I thought, well, actually, what I really enjoy doing is making these spreadsheets, because every business I'd worked for had kind of said to me, we need somehow to manage what we're doing, but we can't afford software, and there's no off-the-shelf software. We can't afford bespoke software. Excel, make something. And that's kind of where I was thrown in. And this, I'm talking since I left school. I mean, not quite as early as 18, 19, but definitely 2021, I was already doing this kind of work and throughout. And I just thought, well, actually, that's the part of my job I enjoy. I enjoy going into these companies, finding out where they are, what they're doing, making everything more efficient. And then when it's working efficiently, I start to get bored and go, well, now what? And actually, he said, well, why don't you do that as a business? And I thought, well, that's great, but that doesn't work in the real world. You've got to go and get a job that will pay money. How's this going to pay money? And in fairness, the first year or two, it didn't. But thereafter, I mean, if I look at year-on-year growth, the graph's always going up, and I can't complain about that.
Yeah.
And yes, I think it was about 7.5 years ago, I decided to start my own business, having never done this before. And in those 7.5 years, I've learned a heck of a lot, hence the book, because I thought, I'd much rather have known a lot of these things before I started. I really grappled with this at first. It was, do I make this into a book? Do I make this into 40 videos? Do I make 40 blog posts? Because my main aim wasn't necessarily to write a book. I mean, I wouldn't put myself down as an author, but I wanted to get the information across. And actually, I thought, well, the best way I could see of doing it is putting one book, because then, it's, as you may have noticed, I even put the topics in alphabetical order, because I wanted, people to be able to find what they were looking for, come back, look at the respective chapter as and when the need arises, and actually be almost like a reference book, so to speak, rather than a sit down and read a novel kind of thing. Do you know what I think? I think the biggest thing about a lot of these chapters, and specifically that one, is not necessarily telling people whether they should be a limited company or a sole trader, because for me, if I look at the plans I had, a limited company was the logical option. For other people, a sole trader is the logical option. A limited company is a waste. So it depends what the plans are. And really, all I wanted to do there was say to people at the beginning, there is an option. Because I know so many people who have started their own business, gone sole trader because that's what you do, and then 5 years later realized, actually, hang on a second, I don't want my name to be the business. I want to create something that's scalable, that can grow. And then all of a sudden they need to then rebrand, do a name change, open a limited company, and then you've got all that hassle. Whereas actually they could have done that right from the start. And that's what I want. I wanted people to know what the options were, and to be able to go, well, hold on a second, let's spend 10 minutes thinking about this before we just go limited because they did, or go sole trader because they did, because they're very different, and they suit different people, and depending on what your plans are. I'm all for collaborations. I think they work well, especially with smaller businesses where you can do so much more when you team together. The reason why I wrote something on collaborations is more a warning. I think a lot of people, when they think about collaborations, a lot of small business owners will just about collaborate with anybody on anything at any time. Whereas, I mean, take us for example. We know each other to a certain degree. We get on with each other, but to then go, well, let's collaborate on something. Collaboration is almost like a business partnership, but without the legal ties. But you still got the same conflicts and emotional things that goes on behind the scenes. So from my point of view, if you want to go and collaborate, what I basically said is, listen, make sure that what you're offering as a collaboration is greater than the sum of its parts. So you're actually both getting something out of this collaboration. Because if you collaborate with me because you feel sorry for me, or I collaborate with you because I think you need me, whatever, then all of a sudden it's a one-sided relationship, and it ends up becoming toxic. And I've just said to people, go in with your eyes open, make sure you know that what you're collaborating is going to produce something better than you can both individually do, and that they're both suited and you're both winning from that collaboration. And treat it with a little bit of respect and caution, rather than just, oh yes, let's just collaborate. Because at the end of the day, if that project goes bad, or if something happens and the other person is to blame, I mean, it's your reputation at stake as well. So you've got to keep that in mind. I mean, when you often think about in the music industry, where one artist would collaborate with another artist, they may just collaborate for one song, or an artist, a painting, do one painting together, and that's should we call a low risk collaboration. When you start to say, well, my business runs alongside your business, let's share clients, let's share resources and work together, that's a longer term collaboration. And those are the ones where you've really got to be careful, and you can't just treat it kind of with a blasé attitude. You've got to go in almost thinking this is a business partner, and would you go into business with this person? Because if not, then I would strongly recommend staying away from collaborations. But the smaller ones where it's, let's do this event together or something, those ones, that's obviously a lot less risk, I'd say. Because I belong to a lot of groups on Facebook with small business owners and that kind of thing, and on LinkedIn as well. As you know, people post questions, and so often it's like, they charging 25 quid, should I charge 25 quid? And you go, well, are you selling the same thing? Have you got the same target market? What are your costs? What? And so many times, a lot of my experience also came in the trades. So I used to project manage a kitchen installation team and that kind of thing. And so often in the trades, they'll walk on site and they'll go, oh, 40 grand. And then when the project's over, you say, did you make money? And they go, oh, we don't know. We've got to wait for the accountants to get back to us 9 months after year end. And you go, that's not helpful. And so many people look at the market and go, well, that's what I ought to be charging. But what I said was, actually, forget what the market's charging. What's this costing you? How many can you sell? Or how many realistically can you sell? How much do you need to make? Work it back as to what you need to charge. And once you've got that figure of this is what I need to charge, then how does that fit into the market? If it's double the price of everyone else, well, is your product twice as good? Because if so, then you need to market it as such. And it's all linked together. And I think so many times I see it a lot with Amazon resellers, especially. When I started trying to launch this book and I wanted to find out what the Amazon fees were, the first thing I did was went to Amazon. And Amazon fees, well, you've got a better understanding of how aerodynamics works and how to make a rocket than you do of understanding their pricing system. So I thought I'd go into this group and ask a lot of experienced people who have been selling on Amazon for years, what are the fees for a book? And none of them actually knew. And I thought, how did you cost this thing? And I think so many people just, okay, we need to sell it at that to get the buy box price or whatever it might be, and they sell it, and they go, well, it's more than what we paid for it. But then what about platform fees? What about marketing costs? What about your staff costs? What about packaging and postage packaging and everything else. And again, I just wanted people to logically sit down and think through this. And if you can't, if you don't have the aptitude to do that yourself, get someone who does. But to look at those pricing, and that would relate to anything, whether you're selling services, products, or even like yourself with the online stuff and the virtual stuff. Sit down and do the maths and work out what you ought to be charging, so that you know that you're going to be making money. Otherwise, I mean, I know a lot of people who have worked 6 months, 8 months, 12 months in a business, assuming they're making money because their turnover is high. And then once they've spoken to their accountant at the end of the year, discovered that they either haven't made money or in fact have lost money. And it's so sad that that happens. I did spreadsheet solutions because I want to make spreadsheets. Um, Contrary to popular belief, I don't want to do bookkeeping. I didn't want to do marketing. I didn't want to do planning. I didn't want to design a logo. I didn't want to write blog post contents and do videos and all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, these are things that you as a business owner have to do. And I think a lot of people start their own business because they think, A, it's going to be massively profitable. B, they can do exactly what they want when they want because they're the boss. And C, that it gives you the flexibility to, take time off to go here, to do that, to go and watch the little kiddies at school, all the rest of it. Let me tell you, my time has been more pressed since I started my business than before. Yes, I can take an hour off during the day to go and do something if I need to, but that invariably means I'm working 3 hours at night. And yes, I can do what I want, but no, I still have to do a lot of things that I don't necessarily want to do. So, you really need to know what you're getting yourself into, rather than just, having the rose tinted glasses on thinking that this is all going to be bliss. Because there are parts of it that I enjoy. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't go back to being employed by someone else if I have the option. But it's not as easy and as whatever simple as I thought it would be at the beginning. I'll say that much. And yes, this is where a lot of the books come from. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I've written about is not necessarily things that I've learned. It's some of those things are things that I got horribly wrong, and learned the hard way. So yeah, that was a lot of that book is I won't say painful experiences, but things that I really wish I'd done right the first time. Ironically, when I was starting a business, if the book was there, I probably wouldn't have read it anyway because I'm not a big reader, and that would have been to my detriment. But I think anyone who is starting a business, to get your hands on that and use that as a kind of step-by-step guide and things to consider, I think you'll pay that back 100-fold by the time you're finished.